The wooden door slammed against its frame as the young woman burst into the cold night, her bare feet striking the rough concrete of the porch. Her breath came in gasps, visible in the crisp air, while her heart thundered like a drum in her chest. Her dark brown skin glistened with sweat under the flickering glow of the street lamp, its dim light barely cutting through the darkness. Her 4C hair, untamed and full of life, bounced with each frantic movement, a halo of defiance against the terror chasing her. Samantha stole a glance behind her, her wide eyes catching the silhouette of the man filling the doorway. He was tall and broad, his shoulders cutting a menacing figure against the light spilling from the house. His shadow stretched long across the yard, consuming the small patches of frost glinting in the moonlight. "Get back here," he barked, his voice a guttural snarl. Her chest tightened, her body teetering between flight and collapse. She pushed herself forward, her feet slipping slightly as they met the gravel of the driveway. The sound of her scream pierced the quiet night, raw and guttural, carrying every ounce of fear. Lights flickered on like a chain reaction in the sleepy neighborhood, each one a beacon of hope. Curtains shifted and faces appeared at windows, their shadows moving urgently in the dim interiors. Across the street, a man stepped onto his porch, his robe clutched around him as he squinted into the dark. A dog barked somewhere nearby, its sharp yelps adding to the chaos. The man behind her hesitated, his steps faltering as the world around them stirred to life. She turned her gaze back towards him, her eyes locking with his for a brief moment. Oh, he wasn't invincible anymore. The wails of sirens cut through the night like a knife, each pulse of sound growing louder, closer, more certain. Ahead of her, a neighbor, a petite older woman with silver curls and a flashlight in hand, stood at the edge of her porch. The woman's voice trembled but carried conviction. "Come here, sweetheart. I've got you. You're safe now." Trembling like a leaf. He's still there," she choked out, her voice hoarse from screaming. "Not for long," the neighbor replied firmly, guiding her up the steps as she spoke hurriedly into her phone. "Yes, she's here. The police are on their way." The man on the driveway had stopped, his shoulders rising and falling heavily as if he were considering his options. But the sirens sealed his fate. He turned slowly, his hands raised as two squad cars screeched to a halt, their red and blue lights spilling across the street. The officers moved quickly, commanding him to lie down. He dropped to his knees, his earlier menace dissipating into hollow compliance. The young woman watched the scene unfold from the porch, her frame trembling as the adrenaline drained from her. Her bare feet felt the roughness of the wood. Grounding her, she leaned into her neighbor's protective hold. Careful. "Are you hurt?" one of them asked, his eyes kind and steady. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Just scared." As they checked her over, the distant roar of a car engine broke through the noise. Her family arrived in a flurry of emotion. Her mother's cry of relief was the first sound she heard. She was pulled into warm, familiar arms, her mother's scent of lavender wrapping around her like a shield. Her father's strong hands rested on her shoulders as he asked the officers questions in a firm, protective tone. "You're safe now, baby," her mother whispered, brushing damp curls away from her face. The young woman nodded, her gaze drifting towards the ambulance where the man sat restrained, his head bowed. She didn't look away. This was her moment, not his. The faint glow of the rising dawn illuminated her face as she whispered to herself, I survived. And she knew, deep in her soul, that this night wouldn't define her. It would fuel her strength for every battle ahead.